Imagine being sentenced to death. Not because you were proven guilty, but because a king had a bad day. No trial that mattered. No appeal. No mercy. Just one royal order. And your fate was sealed. History paints royalty with crowns, silk robes, and golden palaces. But behind those palace walls lived a terrifying truth. For centuries, monarchs didn't just rule nations. They ruled fear itself. And their most powerful weapon wasn't war. It was punishment. Punishments designed to crush rebellion, silence enemies, and terrify entire populations into obedience. Tonight, we uncover the darkest punishments ever ordered by kings, queens, and emperors. Real punishments. Real victims. Real horror, written into human history. And with each punishment, things will only get worse. Prepare yourself. 1. Boiled alive, the king's warning. Before we begin, imagine standing in a crowded town square. You smell smoke. You hear water bubbling. And chained beside you is a massive metal cauldron. In 1531, King Henry VIII made poisoning one of the most feared crimes in England. But execution wasn't enough for him. He wanted terror. Under the Poisoning Act, those convicted were sentenced to be boiled alive in public. Victims were lowered slowly into boiling water, sometimes oil, while crowds were forced to watch. Not just to punish, but to send a message. One of the most chilling recorded cases was Richard Roos, a cook accused of poisoning food meant for the Bishop of Rochester. His execution wasn't hidden. It was turned into spectacle. Imagine hearing the liquid begin to roar. Knowing every second would feel like eternity. This wasn't justice. It was theater of fear. And things only became more brutal from here. 2. Hanged, drawn, and quartered, when death was just the begin. If boiling alive was terror, treason punishment in medieval England was pure nightmare. Because dying once wasn't enough. Those accused of betraying the crown were sentenced to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. And the suffering came in stages. First, the condemned was dragged through streets on a wooden sled while crowds screamed and mocked. Then, they were hanged, but not until death. Just long enough to lose strength. Then came the true horror. While still alive, executioners disemboweled them. Finally, the body was cut into 4 pieces. Those pieces weren't buried. They were displayed across cities as warnings. Imagine walking past the remains of someone who once spoke against the king, and realizing that could be you next. But some rulers believed fear worked best when suffering burned slowly. 3. Burning at the stake, death by fire and F. Across Europe, fire became one of monarchy's most terrifying tools. If you were accused of heresy, witchcraft, or religious betrayal, you didn't just die. You burned in front of everyone. Victims were tied to wooden posts while flames slowly climbed their bodies. Smoke filled their lungs. Heat cracked skin. Crowds gathered, sometimes praying, sometimes cheering. Executioners occasionally used hidden gunpowder as a mercy, because otherwise, death could take agonizing minutes. Sometimes longer. Imagine being forced to confess your beliefs while flames rose around you. And knowing silence meant slower death. Fire wasn't just punishment. It was psychological warfare. But some monarchs created punishments that didn't destroy bodies. They destroyed existence itself. 4. Erasing someone from history, a fate worse than. Imagine dying, and then being killed again. In ancient imperial courts, rulers practiced a terrifying punishment known as Damnatio Memoriae. Instead of execution, enemies were erased from history. Their statues destroyed. Their names scratched from records. Their portraits burned. It was as if they never lived. Families were forbidden from speaking their names. Children grew up pretending parents never existed. Because remembering them could mean death. Imagine knowing your entire life, your achievements, your identity, would vanish like dust. But some rulers wanted enemies to live. Just broken forever. 5. Blinding, destroying power without killing. In Byzantine and medieval royal courts, killing a rival could turn them into a martyr. So kings found something crueler. They destroyed their enemy's ability to rule. Blinding became a political punishment. Rivals had their eyes burned, gouged, or stabbed. And they were left alive. Unable to lead armies. Unable to claim thrones. Unable to challenge power again. Imagine living decades, trapped in darkness, remembering the world you once ruled. It was punishment designed to kill ambition, without killing the body. But some punishments didn't aim to control enemies. They aimed to break them completely. 6. The rack, torture that made truth irrelevant. Inside royal dungeons across Europe stood a machine that turned screams into confessions. The rack. Victims were tied to a wooden frame while executioners slowly pulled ropes attached to their limbs. Arms stretched. Joints dislocated. Bones cracked under pressure. The worst part? The rack wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to force confessions, whether true or false. Imagine your body being pulled apart, and knowing the only way to stop the pain was to say whatever your torturers wanted to hear. Justice didn't matter. Pain decided truth. But even this wasn't the most horrifying punishment monarchs ever created. Because one empire turned execution into ritualized suffering. 7. Lingchi, death by A.T. Hooks and cuts. In imperial China, one punishment stood above all others in cruelty. Lingchi. Reserved for crimes like high treason, it became known as death by 1,000 cuts. Victims were tied to wooden frames while executioners removed pieces of flesh, slowly, deliberately, over time. The goal wasn't quick death. It was prolonged suffering, public humiliation, and total destruction of dignity. Crowds gathered to watch. Families sometimes witnessed it. And for centuries, it was legal. Lingchi wasn't just execution. It was a message carved into human flesh. That defying the emperor meant unimaginable suffering. It was finally outlawed in the early 1900s. But by then, its legacy had already scarred history forever. Here's the truth history books rarely say out loud. These punishments weren't accidents of a brutal age. They were systems. Carefully designed. Not just to kill, but to terrify entire populations into obedience. Because fear is easier to rule than loyalty. And the most disturbing part? Many of these punishments worked. Kingdoms stayed silent. Rebellions faded. Power remained untouched. Behind every crown, there was a shadow. And behind every empire, there were screams history tried to forget. If this video disturbed you, good. Because history isn't meant to comfort us. It's meant to remind us how power can shape and destroy humanity. You're watching Royal Bits, where we uncover the secrets rulers tried to bury. If you want more untold royal history, subscribe to Royal Bits. And tell me in the comments, which punishment shocked you the most? And which one proves that absolute power is humanity's greatest danger? Because history never truly disappears. It just waits to be remembered.